What's good, league? I want there to be a lot of different conversation in our league. And it's not really happening so far. And then I realized it's upon myself to go and make the inaugural video for the 2014-2015 season. And I think that after looking at this first week, we're off to a great start. We got a lot of Swans winning, a lot of Swans losing, a lot of, that's a big piece, a lot of Swans losing. So I really want to go through the league step by step, kind of do after week one how everybody's team looks and what my guesses are going to be for how the league is going to move forward and who's going to make playoffs, etc. And then, after you see this, maybe it's going to incite you to create your own video moving forward after every week. Maybe it can be either just to, tell Clay he's a Swan. That's Clay, you're a Swan. Okay, that's that. It can also be to talk about your team, talk about someone else's team, or talk about the team, the league as a whole. That's what I kind of want. I kind of want a lot of videos every week. Everybody just giving their thoughts, and this is a good start. So I'm gonna look through every team, look through the matchups, kind of see where I think things are going. So I'll start with just a quick overview. We're 1 week in, 6 winners, 6 losers. I won, so that's clear. That was obviously going to happen. Rupert won, not a big surprise. Aaron won. As much of a surprise it is to me, he does probably have a better record than me in the league, but Jimmy Ferg, a huge surprise that Jimmy Ferg won. I mean, mind you, he did only have 82 points and played against somebody that literally does not give 2 shits about fantasy football. So take that for what it is. We got the newcomer. We got Hunt winning. What? I mean, I know Dustin gives him his HJs. Yeah, that's fine. Whatever. Really clever name there. But yes, shocked that he won. And then I look at the people that lost. Jeff's team. He actually put up the 4th. It looks like 5th most. So you weren't that good, Jeff. You're still kind of a Swan. Put up the 5th most points in the league, but got the loss because you went up against Rupert, the big Root Dog, who dropped 148, which somehow beat me. And then we got Kevin, 100 points, pretty decent. Would have been the 7th best team. So you really didn't deserve a win, but you came close. And then Zach, Chilgart, doing terrible. Sam, the new guy. We thought we might see a little bit of first year wonder with Voodoo Magic, but nothing special. And we got Dustin coming in at last, just exactly where I would have placed him. Just really sucks that you had to go up against Jimmy Ferg for week 1. But let me look through, each of these people's teams and really start to see what's going on with this league. So, gonna start with going week 1 and looking at Savage Animal and seeing, how he really destroyed week 1 and put up as many points as he did. Because I remember looking at his team from the get-go and not really being a fan. So he pretty much had consistency at all positions, with quarterback being his high score, which isn't really surprising. At this point, Rupert knows just as well as any of us how to win this league. Came in and pretty much drafted a solid team. Looking at his team, a lot of people would, me included, I like Roddy White, but Reggie Wayne, and Mike Wallace, or might as well be Mike Sims Walker nowadays, being your number 2 and 3 wide receiver. I don't see anything crazy from his team that would have led me to believe that he was going to have this good of a week 1. But, I do love Matt Stafford, Jimmy Graham, and when you look at Matt Stafford having 30 points, look at Jimmy Graham only came in with 12, but that's going to be a mediocre week for Jimmy Graham. So you're going to get some great points out of him. And then the Lions defense and Matt Bryant as your kicker coming for 28 points. Showing again, look, how many people drafted the Lions defense that early? How many people drafted Matt Bryant that early? The kicker and the defense matter in the league, but I don't think they matter where you draft them. I could be wrong with that, but I'm going to keep drafting my kicker and my defense last 2 rounds usually. And when I look at his bench, you see, he had Ben Roethlisberger on the bench. Didn't really have too many bench performers. Having Jason Chitton, it's kind of a nice strategy having two solid tight ends. Um, didn't really have a strong bench performance. Jared Boykin, I assume, is going to be good moving forward for bye week situations. So his team is a little thin there. You don't want to have an injury to Ryan Matthews, which is going to happen. I mean, let's be honest. Ryan Matthews, DeMarco Murray, they're going to like fuck each other soon enough, and each have some downtime. So he's got to work on the overall strength of his bench, I think. But his team is going to be pretty hard to deal with moving forward. It's just a really solid lineup. Roddy White with a bounce back season. And he was going up against Jeff, who Jeff had Julio Jones. Jeff's team was the best team that didn't make the play, that didn't win week one. And when I look at it, he was very consistent. He was pretty much the opposite, though. He had a lot of great performances from his skill position players. But let's look at the Bengals defense and Nick Folk versus the Lions defense and Matt Bryant. 28 points versus 14 points. So he got doubled in that area. 14 points is a lot to give up to your defense and kicker. Not to mention that Danny Woodcock, starting as his running back number 2, didn't get him there. I mean, I think that's a pretty weak game for Danny Woodhead moving forward, but I'm not really surprised. I mean, when you look at his team, he's got Ray Rice, who, gonna be gone from this point on. You got Ahmad Bradshaw, who's already injured, big surprise, already injured, start the season. Jerry McFadden, who you just had to sit there and pray that he was going to be, going to steal carries away from Maurice Jones-Drew, who's equally as shitty as him, but not quite as injury prone as him. So we'll see what happens there. He was weak at running back. Shane Vereen, I think, was a nice pick, so he's going to get the points there. He's going to be able to rest on Russell Wilson. And then, obviously, A.J. Green, Julio Jones is a juggernaut tandem at wide receiver. And then you pair that with Julius Thomas. Those three are his team right there. But, again, you saw the strength of all. So Savage Animal, he had Matthew Stafford going with a 30-burger. That's important. But if you look at his lineup, he's going to usually have one person beat a 30-burger. But he had a lot more continuity as a whole. Everybody was pulling their weight, and that's what got him to be 150 points or 148 points. And that's what got Jeff to be 123 was, having the usual week of A.J. Green, Julius Thomas being really good, Shane Vereen's and Russell Wilson's of the world and Julio Jones of the world being solid. But then having, the Torrey Smiths, the Danny Woodcocks, and the weak kicker and defense is gonna hurt you. So 123 points is usually enough to win, but it did only come 5th in these initial rankings, and his bench isn't looking too strong. I mean, I think Jordan Matthews is going to be nice moving forward, but that's the Eagles fan to me talking about. So, and then you got to hope Wes Welker comes back maybe a little sooner now. They're looking at changing the drug rules, but to be his flex. But even having him and Julius Thomas isn't great. So, an A+ for Rupert. Sorry, Rupert. And I'll give Jeff's team a B plus maybe. I think that his team is going to be strong and probably a playoff team moving forward. But both teams are a little light in their bench, and you don't want to see any injuries come from there. So that being said, I'm going to move on to the second matchup that really produced a top performer, and that's myself. I don't deserve to fucking live versus Voodoo Magic. Now, I don't deserve to live was something that I wasn't necessarily there for, but whenever Clay is screaming, I don't deserve to live, and having a crazy EDM dance party experience, I got to be in that. I got to be a part of that. So that's why my name is what it is. If you look at my team and compare it to Voodoo Magic has definitely had one of the worst performances in the league. His kicker and his defense right away, seeing the Saints defense go for -7. Our league has pretty rough rules on the defense, but I kind of like it that way. The Saints defense got fucking destroyed by the Falcons, and they deserve to get destroyed in fantasy as well. And then Ben Tate, and Doug Martin, the muscle hamster, going week 1. I mean, 6.2 points out of your running backs. I had a shitty situation with my running backs. I had to make a decision to start Fred Jackson over at Andre Ellington. And, while he did get a few more points, it had to come in overtime. So I'm right there with you. It's a shitty situation having sketchy running backs, but you got to put together more than that. I mean, and when I look at his bench had a lot of people that I would have started personally. He's got Eric Decker and Anquan Bolden in over Steve Smith and Julian Edelman. I would have swapped that instantly. I look at Eric Decker and he's definitely worse than Edelman and Steve Smith. Putting that in there, you would have had a pretty monster. Steve Smith with 22. Julian Edelman coming with 15, looking like probably the most consistent wide receiver option for the Patriots, who don't have that great of a running game. He would have been much better off starting those guys. His running back situation is going to be pretty dire. I mean, when I look at his team, he really only has D. Will and Niall Davis on the bench. So he's probably going to throw D. Will and Doug Martin every week and just hope that they can scrounge together enough points. But I mean, with a quarterback like Peyton Manning and a potential wide receiver combination like Vincent Jackson, who I think is one player that really had a pretty down week, but I think will be back. Going with Vincent Jackson, then Julian Edelman, Steve Smith, and then having Bolden and Decker. Bolden didn't have a bad week either, but I can't imagine he's going to be as good as the other four guys on a week to week basis. He's really deep at wide receiver, and his tight end situation. Dennis Pitta, probably a top 7 tight end this year. So I think Sam's team definitely has somewhere to go. Is only going to go up, but wide receiver is good. Running back is really sketchy, and then you just got to make sure that you have a defense. You can't always take the year in the past for what it is. The Falcons were a bad team last year, but they're healthy week 1, and there wasn't any reason where they weren't going to put up a decent amount of points. I was shocked, too, that the Saints lost to them, but not shocked that they got their points. So wouldn't really rely on the Saints defense. But I think there's a lot of I would probably look to flip one of your wide receivers for running back, but running back is going to be tough this year. It's going to be pretty much the has and the have-nots like it is every year. You're usually only going to have one good one. So, that's something to think about. Then I look over at my team. So, boom, before the season starts, Cam Newton going down, not playing the first game, fucking killing me. I got Andre Ellington, Sketchbag City, probably not going to play the first game. I got Bryce Brown on my team. He's not even in the fucking starting lineup. Like, shit if I know. But I pretty much, went with my backups. Didn't really make a lot of free agent pickups, and just went with what I had, and it worked out for me. Arian Foster and Fred Jackson, not great, but again, being able to combine for about 20 points is pretty good when you don't think you have great running backs. And I think Arian Foster, I actually really like that pick. I think as long as Arian Foster is healthy, which is the big if with him, he's going to be pretty good. I agree. I have trust in Bill O'Brien that he's going to really turn around that team. Calvin Johnson, I can't expect what he did for me this week every week, but pretty strong first pick. Looks like 31 points from Calvin Johnson. More in the 15 to 20 range is what I was expecting, and I would have still won with that. But that's the nice upside. Having Carson Palmer was huge. A number 2. You need to know when you can and can't have a number 2 quarterback, in my opinion. You've got Peyton Manning. I don't think that having a number 2 quarterback is really worth it. I'd rather just, my team is built on Peyton Manning in that circumstance. I'd rather just have all wide receivers, tight ends, running backs, just so I can try and have the most consistent lineup and best players available to me as possible, especially at the beginning of the season. But with having a player like Cam Newton, I knew it was going to be pretty important to have Carson Palmer on the team. And just having a decent backup really, really, paid benefits here. Paid dividends here, sorry. 21 points out of my backup. He might not even play this week. He was kind of hurt, but but now I can switch back to Cam Newton. Seeing that Cam Newton is in a decent situation, isn't in that bad of a situation there, is really nice. Cordero Patterson, one of the guys that was kind of an upside pick. Looks like he touches the ball enough to have great impact. Didn't have a lot of impact receiving, but they're going to keep giving him the ball. They're going to try and give him as many chances. They're not a great throwing team, so they're going to give him chances to run the ball, like you guys saw. I don't think he's going to be at 20 points a week. He might have some weeks where he can completely fucks me, but I think that's fine with a wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, especially when I had Calvin Johnson. That was kind of the nice part about that. Greg Olsen, looks like he's going to be a top seven tight end. Greg Olsen has always had the ability, but I think a lot of my question with him was that he wasn't that big of a part in Cam Newton's offense. Um, Cam Newton will be back this week, so it'll be interesting to see if he stays, if he doesn't really look Greg Olsen's way, or he does now that they kind of have worse tight ends. But I mean, I think regardless, he's going to be a top 12 tight end. 18 points is a little bit on the high side for him. I was happy with it. Emmanuel Sanders, one of the top three, top four targets. I mean, once Wes Welker comes back, he's probably going to see a little bit of a hit, but really nice to see 12 points out of him without even getting a touchdown, which is nice for a wide receiver. And then again, Blair Walsh and Cardinals defense combining for 18 points. Blair Walsh really being a nice play. I think he's going to be a top kicker, shows that you can get top kickers in the last round because they change every year. You know, Blair Walsh, with how bad they were last year, wasn't really an option, but with a new coach, I think they're going to be a little bit better this year. With whichever one of their quarterbacks they go with the whole year. So I think he's going to be a solid play. And then Cardinals defense, I'm going to keep watching. And then my bench was another. I like to see a couple nice performances out of my bench. Andre Ellington playing. I can already tell that he's going to be a sketch bag the whole season. Whether he plays, whether he doesn't play. Whenever he has Thursday night games or Monday night games, it's going to screw me. But that's kind of what I went with, and that's why I drafted Fred Jackson as my first running back off the bench. But Andre Ellington is still going to have upside for me. And Brandon Cooks, who I drafted in a lot of leagues, I really, really liked him as a rookie. Just wasn't sure how fast he was going to get incorporated. Looks to be the strong number 1/number 2 receiver next to Marcus Colston for my boys, the Saints. Obviously, he's competing with Jimmy Graham as well, but I think that he'll be a solid play. So I'll have to make a lot of choices between him and Emmanuel Sanders and Cordell Patterson throughout the regular season. But when you're deciding between players that are doing well for you, I think it's a lot easier decision. So I'm looking really good. I mean, I put up 143 points, so I think it's the high end, and I could be too high on my team. And an injury to Calvin Johnson or something like that could really fuck me. But I'm feeling really good about my team moving forward. So spent a little extra time there, but it's my fucking team. Deal with it. And I think that I'm going to keep running train on this league. So I'm going to jump around a little bit. I'm going to go to the winner of the shit sandwich matchup, which is Jimmy Ferg versus Dustin, who, aka, why the fuck am I in this league anymore? And Jimmy Ferg is who I'm playing this week. So his team was pretty much Matt Ryan, and that was it. Matt Ryan and a bunch of pieces of glue were able to get you to 82 points when normally you'd be pissed about that. But in this league, you went up against fucking Clay, who God knows. I mean, his team doesn't even look that bad, but that's kind of what ends up happening. Let's start with Clay's team, I'll start with Dustin's team. So we'll look at it. Eddie Lacy, was a solid first pick. That's really the worst you can expect out of him. Aaron Rodgers, I was in the camp that didn't really look. If I wasn't getting Peyton Manning early on, I wasn't drafting a quarterback. That was kind of where I went with it. If Matt Ryan or Matt Stafford or Cam Newton fell, I was going to take those, which I did end up taking Cam Newton. But I really wasn't going to draft Aaron Rodgers in the second round, which it looks like he actually got him in the third round because he's got Alfred Morris as well. One of those, between those three players, that's a solid first three picks. I think that's probably the worst week you're going to get from all of them. So his team isn't going to be this bad every week, but hedging hard against the Seahawks is tough. Victor Cruz, downright terrible pick. Really, I'm not a big fan of the Giants, but Dustin's always got to have somebody from the Giants on his team so he can The thing that's weird when I look at Dustin's team is that he's actually got a decent amount of running backs, which is weird. Like Eddie Lacy, Alfred Morris. I think Stephen Ridley will be okay, but then having Lamar Miller and Noshawn Moreno, I mean, you got five decent, and Steven Jackson's on his team too. So, if you find the right people, you can trade Steven Jackson or maybe Lamar Miller, or maybe you go crazy and trade Alfred Morris and just put a lot of faith in Noshawn Moreno or Lamar Miller. But he's got some play with his running backs, which is going to give him some room to replace Victor Cruz, who I don't think you're going to want in your. I mean, maybe I'm too hard on the Giants, but I just don't have any faith in quarterback. I don't have any faith in their new offense. I don't have much faith in Victor Cruz. I mean, the guy even last year was just really subpar. Had some ridiculously good games, and he's going to get that. He's going to have his 2 or 3 touchdown games and make you think, oh yeah, he's going to be good for the rest of the season. But you're going to be waiting a while for that guy to be consistent, and I really don't think that you're going to get it from him. Percy Harvin, super solid pick with a wide receiver 2, might be worth the wide receiver 1. So, you flip one of your running backs for a wide receiver 2, and he could be right there. Because I think that this team can start 3 running backs every week. And then Zach Ertz, who I really like. Obviously, a little bit of my Eagles fandom is going to come out there, but I think Zach Ertz is going to be solid for this team moving forward. I mean, he pretty much got 15 points with one half because Nick Foles was just fucking jerking off for the first half. But I mean, like I said, I am a little bit of an Eagles diehard fan. But I think our team is going to be good. And somebody's going to be consistent in that passing game. And I think Zach Ertz is just as good of a chance as Macklin or Cooper or whoever. I don't think Cooper will be very good. A trade is probably needed for Dustin's team, but he actually has some solid players. Hit me up. I love making trades. Even if even though everybody just wants to make trades with me now, but that is what it is. So let me look over the team that I actually think is worse overall. So looking at Clay's team, or Jimmy Ferg, as you want to call him, whatever you want to call him. Monte Ball, it looks like it worked out. They were pretty content on just giving him all the rushes, and he is a goal line back. So I do like Monte Ball. That's about where it stops here. Keenan Allen, the thing I didn't really think about was how Floyd is back. And, they already spread the ball so much there that I would be surprised if Keenan Allen is a solid number 1 receiver the whole rest of the way. He's probably number 2 receiver flex play the rest of the way. And then so that's fine, but having him and Des Bryant, I feel like you have a lot of pieces that are kind of up in the air. Des Bryant, we'll see. He's going up against the 49ers this week, so he might not have another great week. But then he does have St. Louis, who he'll probably have a good week against, New Orleans. So he's got some decent matchups moving forward. But I'm just really not a fan of putting your faith in a team that has that many problems like the Cowboys do. Whether it be injury with Des Bryant or whether it be he fucking fights his mom, who knows what he's going to do. I just wouldn't have a lot of faith in him being my number 1 wide receiver. But even worse, and then in his flex, he's got Bernard Pierce, who, when your flex gets you negative points, when any player that you start other than your defense gets you negative points, even your defense gets you negative points, you're reassessing things. Kelvin Benjamin, I think he's slotting in this week against me, which is a doubly nice play because I do have Cam Newton as well, but he seems like he's going to be solid. So Keenan Allen, Des Bryant, Kelvin Benjamin is probably going to be a decent wide receiver mix to roll with. And then having Golden Tate on the bench, playing with those matchups is probably going to be okay. Monte Ball and Frank Gore, Frank Gore, they're just going to run him. They're going to run him, in tandem. Now they got Carlos Hyde, which looks pretty good for them. I just feel like he's always going to be the consistent running back. Let's see he had 16 carries, which is nice, but they were killing the the Dallas Cowboys. I'm surprised he didn't have more. Second half they were pretty much running the whole time, and they were giving a lot to Carlos Hyde. A lot wasn't, they weren't getting a lot of places. I just think that he's going to be a pretty mediocre running back. Ideally, he's probably going to be a running back number 2, but you're not really gonna want him there. Jordan Cameron. At tight end is pretty weak. I wouldn't even put him in the top 7 tight ends. The guy had a couple good weeks in his career, and I like him, but let's not go crazy. He's not going to be amazing. You got Heath Miller and him backing up. I am seeing Josh Gordon, and that is, you already changed your name. Good for you, Clay. That's probably a pretty bad fucking move for karma purposes, but waiting on Josh Gordon. So if Josh Gordon comes back, maybe this team ends up looking a lot better. He can trade one of his wide receiver pieces, maybe try and get another okay running back to play matchups with Frank Gore. But I can see a lot. I see a lot of weeks like this from and And I know that I hate on Jimmy Ferg a lot, but I just really don't like Des Bryant this year. And I didn't. I mean, I didn't like him in the draft. I wouldn't take him unless he fell to me. I think Matt Ryan is going to be a solid quarterback. I think that was a solid pick, but 31 points is going to be at his high end. Um, yeah, I think people that are out there, they Des Bryant was so good last year, but I don't know. I just don't see. I think Tony Romo is getting worse. I think this is going to be the year that the Cowboys really suck their own dicks. And him being out for part of the game, being hurt. Maybe I could be wrong there. Maybe Des Bryant's going to just tear it up the rest of the season, but I wouldn't put my faith in him. And unfortunately, with this team, you got to put your faith in Des Bryant. I mean, he's supposed to be the second best player on the team, probably behind, and was drafted to be the best player on the team. I mean, Matt Ryan is probably going to. I think Matt Ryan's going to be a pretty solid pool for the rest of the league. Everybody else on the team is just a bunch of fucking rejects, like Hakeem Dix and LeGarrette Cunt, Jeremy Hill. And then, so, if you're Clay, I mean, hope that Josh Gordon comes back, and then if he comes back, try and make maybe a trade or for a wide receiver, or just roll with those two, and hope that you can withstand any wide receivers getting hurt with some of that. I should be incorporating what everybody did in waivers this week too, because that is pretty relevant. So I'm halfway through, a little bit more than halfway through. So I'm gonna go real quick and look at the wide receiver, the pickups for free agent auction. So Doug Baldwin for Justin Forsett for $30, which you would think is super high, but Jeff also tried to pick up Justin Forsett for $30, and Zach tried to pick him up for $23. So great bid there by Linton. I think that Justin Forsett is probably going to be a pretty solid play for the rest of the league. Texans defense for $15 though. I mean, he's already wasting $45, maybe more. $45 on two players. I don't think Texans defense is going to be that good, and nobody else bid on them. So Jesus take me now. So Zach bid on them for $4. So I think that's kind of the hits you're going to take being a newbie. One second, I'm going to turn on the light for a second. Ugh. That's a little better. Yeah, I think that's kind of the what you're gonna need to learn from being a newbie. Overdraft, paying a little bit too much, but I mean it worked this way in Justin Forsett's case. If you really think he's good, yeah, I put in an $11 bid on Justin Forsett. That used to be. I remember the first year we did the auction draft. I got Cam Newton at week one for $11, and we had Jimmy Ferg. Oh God, that was way too much paying. $11 of your $100 for your quarterback, and guess what? It was my quarterback for the rest of the year. So I guess it wasn't worth that much. So if you think Joseph Forsett is going to be a solid play for you the rest of the season, which I could probably agree with after seeing how bad Pierce was, then I would agree he's probably worth $30. But $15 for the Texans, too much. Andrew Hawkins for $6. That was nice. That was a nice pickup. Alan Hearns for $5. I like. For Jeff, I think that you can't go too high on Alan Hearns because I did watch the game and I saw that we made some pretty bad plays. But at the same token, we made really good plays second half. So the game kind of balanced itself out from everything I can see. So he's always going to be their deep threat. If you're them, you got to start looking at like a Cecil, like you were thinking about paying Cecil Shorts next year. But if you see this guy like Alan Hearns, an undrafted free agent, going and competing well for that deep spot, maybe you don't need to pay Cecil Shorts. Maybe you need to just hope that Hearns, you got Malcolm Lee. I mean, you got Lee. You got Robinson from Penn State, my boy, who may or may not be good. Maybe it's worth just telling Cecil Shorts to go fuck himself or just trying to pay him less. So yeah, I like that. I like that pickup for $5. I think that anybody that was bidding in none of my leagues anybody bid like $11+ on him. I think that would have been wrong. But I think that not picking him up was wrong too. So $5 is probably perfectly fine for him. Um, I got Malcolm Floyd for $3. I thought that was a solid pickup. Malcolm Floyd obviously showed that he's back from his injury last season. I did hear certain things like he was got the number one. Was the after camp was everybody on the team was giving him a lot of props for being the most ready for camp. So he kind of proved to me in that he was back after it. He was back looking to be where he looked like he was going to be last year before he got hurt. So I think that kind of hurts Keenan Allen a little bit because they do have two legit wide receivers, but Malcolm Floyd is always an injury problem. Mike Nugent, I picked up Jake Locker. No, it's actually Zach in this league. So Zach picked up Jake Locker, which is a nice pickup. And finally, I got Anthony Dixon because I might as well have a backup to my Fred Jackson sketchy pick, and Bryce Brown isn't even fucking playing so far. So I'll have a piece of that sketchy Buffalo piece. Oh yeah, and Jermaine Gresham for a sec. That's a tight end that might be around the 8th to 12th range. Now that Eifert's hurt for a decent amount, so I think our waiver claims are pretty solid for this week. So I'm going to move on. And Justin Forsett added to Sam's team. Sam's like coming. I mean, I'll give him credit. The guy has players on his bench. He's coming out. He's making free agent moves. He's not trying to be bad. He's not trying to be the first year guy in this league. So I wouldn't be surprised if he picked it up. So I know I'm taking a while, but this is the first draft, so back the fuck off. And this is the first time I've ever really gone after all these teams. So I'll go after Kevin and Aaron had a pretty heated matchup. Kevin putting up 100, which is a pretty, with 100 points, I think you're 50-50 to win or lose, especially in a 12-man league as the year goes on. You're going to see less and less teams each week. I think usually in my other 12-man league with this same rules, 4 teams or 5 teams usually had 100. Just based off injuries, teams get really thin if everybody's trying. So 100 points is not bad to start the week. I mean, like I said, Nick Foles only played one half, so 15 points on Nick Foles. You can't really be hating it too much after he played one half. Giovanni Bernard wasn't able to run at all, but still had 14 points, which I really like to see. And I like Pierre Thomas. Again, that whole Pierre Thomas is in that line of thinking of the whole fucking draft. There's not going to be that many good running backs. He's the perfect running back number 2. If you're looking at the rest of his team, I mean, Giovanni Bernard and Chris Johnson, who I hate, actually look like he's going to get decent run. That was against Oakland, so I'll wait 2 weeks because he's still got Chris Ivory to beat out for some carries. Let's see, he had 13 carries. He did have 5 catches. So if he can get third down where Chris Johnson's probably going to be a startable player all year, which was just hard for me to stomach. I really like Marcus Wheaton. I like that. He's going to be the Emmanuel Sanders of Pittsburgh. Emmanuel Sanders obviously hasn't been fantasy startable, but I don't know. I see Pittsburgh being a little bit more fantasy relevant this year just because their defense isn't anything special. They're going to be in shootouts with teams where they do have to put up 27 points. So if they can keep doing that, I see Brown, I see Blunt, and I see, to a lesser extent, Marcus Wheaton being pretty solid the whole rest of the year. Robert Griffin III, you have Nick Foles, so hopefully Nick Foles can push you through. But if he gets hurt or if he sucks again this week, you're kind of going to be shit out of luck in hoping that Robert Griffin III returns back to being value, which I wouldn't put a lot of faith in, but whatever. Kendall Wright, I mean, being your number one, I start him in most of my leagues that I had him. But I wouldn't have started him in your league. So him being the number one, I think is pretty value. Pierre Garçon, I mean, jumping in your wide receivers, he got 12, almost 13 points without a touchdown being scored, so that's nice. Demaryius Thomas had a low week, but I think he's going to bounce back. So I really like the Republicans. Actually, I won't take this team lightly. He has to work out whether he thinks the Ravens defense is going to be the defense moving forward. They looked okay in some aspects. I don't know if he picked up a new one, but I think his team is going to be solid. He's going to have some options to make some trades too, or just wait, or what most people do in this league, just wait around and wait for one of your players to get hurt. Whatever. So I definitely think that once if he could put up 100 points without Demaryius Thomas doing anything, and without like any of these running backs really having phenomenal days. So I think his team is going to be pretty solid. Then we're going to look at Aaron's and my pants. I mean, I'm not a big fan of Colin Kaepernick, but I still think he's a startable quarterback in this league. He's probably going to be around 12 to 17 points on most weeks. But, I mean, Marshawn Lynch over Forte. We all saw it in the draft and all thought, what the hell is this guy doing? And I'll even admit to myself, Aaron picked fourth over third. He did not want. That tells me, I thought that he might be trying to draft Aaron Rodgers because he just loves Aaron Rodgers so much. But he really didn't think that. I guess he lumped in Marshawn Lynch in with those top three running backs and didn't think that, and thought that he could wait until the fourth round to get one of them. And waiting that round and getting Marshawn Lynch, that's some good strategy because he came around the second round and he did draft Zach Stacy, but that didn't hurt him as much because he drafted such a good running back round one. So I think that's he might have drafted Antonio Brown round two. I mean, so he got a solid wide receiver and a really good running back. Without waiting as long as possible. Now, whether some people think that Forte should have been fourth, I think that's up in the air. I thought this might be a down year for Marshawn Lynch, and I will admit that Green Bay's run defense looked pretty terrible. So I don't expect 25 points out of him every week, but he's definitely going to be a number one running back this year. So I feel really good. I feel really good about that pick for Aaron, and even Marquise Colston. Again, a player that I didn't really have many high hopes for, but looked like he's going to be involved in that offense. And he fumbled at the end of the game, so he would have had more points. He might be a nice flex, nice number two. C.J. Spiller coming in at the flex. Zach Stacy's probably going to move to the bench or to the flex after this week, but he picked a lot of players that had high upside and a lot of downside as well. But if C.J. Spiller works out, if Marshawn Lynch works out, and Colin Kaepernick works out, then his team's going to be pretty good. I mean, Martellus Bennett had 17 points at tight end. Might not be that good every week, but Alshon Jeffrey is looking like he might be hurt. And that passing game is always going to be there. I mean, even Forte did not get most of his points from running. He got a lot of them from passing. So I'd be pretty stoked with his team. He's got a pretty nice lineup. I mean, Deshaun Jackson on the bench is only going to get better. 9.3 points in a week they did nothing. Chris Ivory, who again you're going to need to wait and see. But against Oakland, he got a decent amount of carries. He got Chris Ivory got 10 carries compared to 16 from Chris Johnson. And it wasn't even that much of a blowout game. And Chris Ivory did a lot with that one carry. We all know he got a touchdown with. So might see Chris Ivory getting a lot of the work on first and second down. Who knows? Riley Cooper, wasn't a huge fan of Riley Cooper going into the draft. He didn't have a great first game, but that might turn around. Harry Douglas, Bilal Powell, Darius Green, all. Whatever draft picks at the end of the draft took chances. I think having Ivory and Powell is a little much. You don't want to commit two spots to that running back tandem unless you have Chris Johnson and Chris Ivory, and I'd be looking to trade one of the two of them. And then Andy Dalton, who might be a better quarterback than Colin Kaepernick. I think you're going to have a lot of questions moving forward because Andy Dalton had 18 points, Colin Kaepernick had 17. So you're 1 week in, and you've already got 1 week where you were wrong about the quarterback that you should play. But we'll see. We'll see what happens the rest of the way. I have a good fantasy player is going to play his matchups correctly and give himself the best chance to win. So I really like Aaron's team moving forward. I think he's going to have a solid chance to repeat. Possibly from 2 years ago, possibly get back in the playoffs and scum me out for the first place. It's pretty funny that You look around the league, there was a lot of times in the first week you'll have a lot of bad teams winning and a lot of good teams playing against other good teams. You did have Jeff play against Sam and Dustin play against Jimmy Ferg, but that was really it. In our league, it was pretty much always a good team versus a bad team. So the bad teams really got. If you were bad in our league week one, you did not get much of a. You did not get much help, and if you were good, you pretty much creamed the other person. So that being said, I'm going to move on to Zach. We'll look at Zach's team. Again, I'm not going to do this much every week, but this is the first time I really got to look at everybody's team. I've been pretty busy for the first week, so it's kind of good for me as well to see these teams. I'm thinking of trades in my head, so be on the lookout for trade possibilities. So I'm looking at it. Zach got smoked by James Hunt, which is that's a pretty feel bad, for anybody. Nobody wants to get smoked by Hunt. But Hunt's team looks like it could be pretty solid. I mean, LaShawn McCoy and Andrew Luck is a nice tandem. I think from a record perspective, the Colts are going to be a lot worse this year than other people think. I wouldn't be surprised if they only won 8 games, but I think that Luck is going to be one of the top 7 quarterbacks at the end when all is said and done. He's going to keep throwing the ball. 26.7 points is pretty nice for Luck in his first week. I don't know what he really ranked. Probably ranked second or third. So I think that's going to keep going. And I think Rashad Jennings was a value pick late in the draft. Rashad Jennings getting 17 points when the Giants are that bad just goes to show how many points, if he can stay healthy, he's going to get for a lot of the week, for a lot of the season. Andre Johnson, Jeremy Maclin. Andre Johnson, I think his demise is a little bit premature. I think he's going to be solid but I see the question. He's got a questionable tag now, but he's not going to practice that much. He's going to play. I think he's going to play a lot. So I definitely see him as a number 2 wide receiver / number 1, and Jeremy Maclin as a number 2 wide receiver. So that 2 right there, I think is going to be pretty solid. You're going to need, you're going to have to hope T.Y. Hilton notches it up and does a little bit better. So you have 3 wide receivers to choose from, because I wouldn't put a lot of faith in LaFell or in Mike Evans, who Mike Evans I think is solid, but he is a rookie. He is a rookie wide receiver. There's usually only 1 or 2 of them, maybe at all. Like my guy for the Saints might not be good either. So that's pretty tough. But I like the starting unit for for Hunt's team. And really, he's just got to hope to not have a lot of injuries, or some of his young players turn it around. And then I go over to Zach's team. I'm going to keep making fun of him for Jay Cutler before Cam Newton. We'll see how that turns out. I'll spot him to 18 points, and I'll bet that Jay Cutler is going to get hurt later in the season. But that's just a pride thing. He's got Adrian Peterson, Toby Gerhart as his running backs. So Toby Gerhart, he looks pretty mediocre. That line doesn't look that great either. So I wouldn't expect Toby Gerhart to be startable every week. He might have some soft matchups. But, the Eagles' run defense, I will say that our run defense is going to be improved, but we're not going to be an amazing run defense, and we still held him to 6.7 points. He did miss part of the game, but his running backs and his speed that came in when he was hurt didn't really do much either. So I don't think Toby Gerhart is going to be startable most of the year, unfortunately. He does have, so he's going to have to back him up with Mark Ingram and Darren Sproles. Mark Ingram, who's one of my most hated fantasy players ever. I can't believe he got 18 points week 1. He had 2 touchdowns. If you really think he's going to keep getting 2 touchdowns, let me know in this video, because I'm just completely wrong. But I wouldn't. But this is the week where I bet Zach would turn around and throw Mark Ingram in the starting lineup, and then he's going to get him 2 points, and he's going to be like, what the fuck? That's just what happens when you have Mark Ingram on your team. But Darren Sproles, he got a lot more carries than I thought he was going to compared to LaShawn McCoy. 11 carries, and he had 4 receptions, so he had a lot of chances to make plays. I watched that whole game, obviously, so I was shocked. I really didn't think he was going to get as much run as he did. I don't think he's going to usually outscore LaShawn McCoy, obviously, but you give him 15 touches a game, he's probably going to be a flex or a running back 2 play for a lot of the league. Adrian Peterson, such a good player, but no idea how Minnesota's going to be the rest of this year. They kicked ass and he got 10 points. So hopefully he gets some more touchdowns. But we'll see. Randall Cobb, I think, is going to be a good play moving forward. Same with Michael Floyd. Then you got Alshon Jeffrey. So hopefully Alshon Jeffrey plays a lot. I mean, if Alshon Jeffrey plays most of the season, that's a pretty stacked running back, trifecta. Jordan Reed had him in a lot of leagues as well, but he really looks like he's going to hurt tight end. He's the guy who I really think is going to hurt tight end, people that have tight end question marks. Like, Zach has Charles Clay on his bench, but is that guy, are you really going to play Charles Clay over Jordan Reed? They're both hurt. They both sucked dick week 1, so I don't know. I'd be kind of scared, and I'm not seeing any emergence from Sammy Watkins, Donald Brown, or Dexter McCluster anytime soon. So if I was him, you have to hope that Jay Cutler doesn't get hurt, and then you really have to hope that Alshon Jeffrey stays healthy, and you can get like a couple free agent pickups. It would have been huge for him if he would have got the starting running back from the running back from the Ravens, because he could have plugged him in. He probably would have been startable for at least these first couple of weeks until we see what Pierce is made of. But yeah, if I was Zach, he had 85 points week 1, and it's not getting any better. He's gotta have some of these guys step up. And I can see guys like Michael Floyd consistently getting 15. Can I see them getting 30? You've got to have players on your team that can get you 30. His team might not have enough upside, but I could be wrong there. But that's just me. Keep moving. Sorry about that. We're gonna go Steve Hudgens versus Chris Chilgart. Team Ground and Pound USA. I like that. His picture is he's got a picture of Dustin and no shirt on. I like that. I like everything about his team so far, but then I look at Jamal Charles coming up with 5.4 points. Really? Is he that is that team that bad? I think it must be. I mean, he's obviously somewhere in between. That was just a terrible week 1. Kind of a lot of things went wrong. Bishop Sankey. I thought that guy was going to be a solid pick, but before the drafts happened, I really saw that Sean Green was edging him out in a lot of matchups. I think that's just the lack of respect, especially in a Wizard on offense for rookie running backs, and you saw that week 1. Sankey, they kicked ass. Would have been a nice time for Sankey to do something. He did nothing. And Sean Green and his fat ass got all the carries. So, I mean, Carlos Hyde, I think, has a lot of upside for the 49ers. So there's some good stuff there. And Terrence West, I really like. Fuck you. I really wanted him to be on waivers. I was hoping that somebody dropped him before the season started, but he looks like he's going to be pretty solid. So I like some of the backup situation that you've got going here. But Joique Bell, I mean, 12 point. I have Joique Bell in a couple of weeks. 12.1 off of fucking having a touchdown at the very end of the game. They couldn't run it against anybody. They couldn't run it against the Giants. Maybe the Giants just have an amazing run defense that we don't know about, but I was worried by him. Jamal Charles with 5.4, really not getting me there. Drew Brees only putting up 15 points when his team put up 34. Really, Mark Ingram vultured 2 TDs for him, so I'm hoping. I mean, I think that's a little bit of an outlier, so Drew Brees can be fine, but you put a lot of faith in Drew Brees in your 3rd pick. Really don't want to see that. Brandon Marshall, questionable, but he should be good if the league goes on. Michael Crabtree as well. I'm not a huge fan of Michael Crabtree. I was talking to Zach earlier today and talking to him about how I really don't like any San Francisco wide receivers because he spreads the ball out. Colin Kaepernick is inconsistent, and he spreads the ball out every week. So you really never know if you're going to have a good wide receiver in that tandem. I mean, Anquan Bolden might be the most consistent of all of them because he's always there for the short passes, and that's the go-to for Colin Kaepernick. Terrence Williams, again, 13 points, but Jesus, he needed that touchdown at the end of the game for it to be worth it. And then Delaney Walker, who was a pleasant surprise, Let me just make sure. I mean, he did get a touchdown. I think that's kind of what he is. He's touchdown or bust. But where you drafted a tight end, you kind of didn't put a lot of faith in him. So he did his job. Saints defense and Mason Crosby obviously didn't. So getting 2 from your position from your defense and your kicker is going to be tough. But yeah, there's a little bit of upside on this team. I think Jamal Charles is going to bounce back. I really like Terrence West, for example. I think he's going to be a solid number 2 running back. Joey Bell might be a flex, might be a number 2. But you got to hope Crabtree stays healthy, and I think you're really going to get another, moving Terrence Williams into your number 2 wide receiver over Crabtree. Maybe Crabtree will bounce back, but I wouldn't expect it consistently from him. So he is missing a wide receiver, I think. And hopefully Breeze doesn't get 15s every week, because that would be pretty devastating for people that have him. Then moving over to Steve Hudgens. So Clay told us that he thought he raped the draft. I mean, ESPN would tell you that. I didn't think that at all. And I think from his draft, it was a little bit of, he had a little bit of both. He had Forte and Le'Veon Bell, so he had 2 running backs in a week. That running back really didn't do that great. He had 2 running backs get him almost 50 points. So he obviously has a very formidable running back tandem. And not to mention that he does have Jordy Nelson, who I like as well. But, Larry Fitzgerald, wasn't a huge fan of him. ESPN always ranks him too high. I just think that he gets fucked on by the opposing defenses will double him. He's just not going to be that consistent. Vernon Davis, again, I would be surprised if he's consistent because he had 2 touchdowns. Almost dropped one of them, but he only had 4 catches. So Vernon Davis, I wouldn't expect to be that great either. And Trent Richardson is just a mess. I don't know how you can start him every week and think that you're going to be golden there. So you're really going to have to go into the bench and hope that Cecil Shorts comes back. I don't know. Like his bench isn't that deep. I wouldn't have a lot of faith in any player on his bench, except possibly Cecil Shorts when he comes back because they're going to be throwing it a lot. Having to pick between Tony Romo and Tom Brady, I would go between Tom Brady. I mean, again, he's Jimmy Ferg's friend, and Jimmy Ferg has always been that person. Okay, the Cowboys are going to suck, but Tony Romo and their wide receiver, their number 1 wide receiver, are going to get their points. Might not happen that much this year. Des Bryant and Tony Romo might not be that good. So even if Des Bryant is good, I just don't see Tony Romo being a solid startable quarterback and getting 10 points from a quarterback. I mean, you're not going to get 50 points from 2 running backs every week, and you only got 112. So you were like 6th in the league as it is. So I'd be a little worried with that starting lineup. I think that there's a lot of chance for that lineup to kind of dip down. I could be wrong. He just has a lot of players that ESPN ranks highly that I personally think are butt. But he does have players. The Forte, Bell, Nelson trio is going to be something that I think is pretty solid. So, and then you can't hate on the Seahawks defense. I mean, I'm not a big fan of drafting defenses very high. They had a kick-ass game and still only got 10 points. So, kind of got to watch for what ESPN gives defense points for. But outside of that, I guess we'll see if Antonio Gates is healthy and has a decent season. He could be in the flex or something, could be running the 2 tight end set the rest of the year. But that's a skeptical 112 points on my. I would like to see that after week 2. If he puts up a lot of points week 2, we'll see how it goes. But he didn't really make any great pickups from what I saw. And that pretty much does the whole league justice. So I went through every team, kind of told you who I thought was good, who I thought was bad. And I think that our first week of games really kind of went along with what I have. So with what I thought, which is always nice. And across all my leagues, had a pretty good record. So I think a lot of my early assumptions were good. And the thing from here on out is going to be who stays healthy. I think Kevin's team, I think Jeff's team, and I think Hilgard's team are the 3 lost teams that could jump up. And I also think Jimmy Ferg, Steve Hudgens, and I'd probably go between Aaron and Hunt. I would probably go with Hunt as the 3 winning teams that I think could have a drop off. But I think the first 4 teams in our league that did well are all pretty solid, and then after that, you're going to see a lot of play. I mean, I could if Cam Newton is hurt a lot, that could put me in a bad position. My running backs could get super sketchy super quick if Arian Foster has his yearly problems, period and whatnot, all the stuff that happens to him. Um, but then at the bottom, I see Dustin. If he probably won't look at his team, so he's probably going to suck dick the whole season. But he could turn it up. Sam has made some nice free agent pickups. He could turn it up. Zach really needs to pray for the health of his players and needs to upgrade his bench slowly. I mean, getting that running back, getting a running back from the Ravens would have been a nice addition, but Sam put his money where his mouth is. So, gonna have to always be scattering the waiver wire to kind of pick up and make your team whole. So just to end it off, I'll go in order of record and give where I think your team is. Rupert, I would put his team in as an A. I do think that he needs to watch. He has a lot of injury-ridden players, but I think his team's pretty good. I would definitely put him at an A. I'd put myself at a B plus to an A minus as well. I think that I have probably three decent depth players on my bench for depth. I have 2 quarterbacks that I think can do pretty well, and solid wide receivers. So I like my team. Hunt's team, I think I would give him a B. I think LaShawn McCoy is only going to go up. Again, my Eagles homer is coming out, but I think that he has to worry about his wide receivers getting hurt. Like if Andre Johnson doesn't play a game, so he has to hope that T.Y. Hilton goes up, steps up a little bit. But I really like his team moving forward. So I'd give him a B plus, probably around the same point as me. And I like Aaron's team as well. I'd give Aaron, around the same as me. I think that's fair. Like our 3 teams really seem decent, but we gotta show that we're good, that we're good 2 weeks in a row, because my team might suck dick, might lay a brick week 2. You never know. Moving forward, so then we got Clay's friend Steve. I really don't think his team. I didn't think it after the draft. I don't think his team is that good. I think he's got 3 really good players. I don't think Le'Veon Bell is going to have that solid. So I'd give him probably a B minus. Then we're going into Jimmy Ferg's team, who I'd probably give a C. And I'm not trying to be mean to Clay here. I just don't really like his team. He doesn't have that much upside. Hopefully Gordon comes back. Then I'd be a little bit more scared of his team. We got time for eHarmony. So we got Jeff's team, who I think is probably a B plus as well. He's probably right up there with my team. We got Kevin, who's probably a B minus. Zach, who's probably a C. Then we got Hilgard, who's probably a C. Sam, who's probably a C, and Dustin, who's probably a C as well. So I think what you see in this in 12-team leagues like this, and what I've seen in most of my 12-man league, is that there's going to, even the best teams in the league, they don't have runaway campaigns. Maybe we're looking at like a 9-4 or a 12 or a 10-3 type team. Then we're going to see a lot of 7 and 6s battling for the playoffs. Because the team, sorry, my dog's toy, doesn't seem that far fetched that one of the teams that looked terrible week 1, like Sam's team, could be a playoff contender. So I think there's going to be probably usually one team is like 11-2, 10-3, and then there's and then one team is really bad, like the 4-9 or whatever, and then everybody else is probably going to be in the middle. So it looks that way for this first week. We'll see if some of these bottom feeding teams can kind of pick up. I got Jimmy Ferg, so I'm going to tell you right now, you're going the fuck down, Jimmy Ferg. Okay, I got Cam Newton back. I got my team is just going to run train on you. So comment if you think I'm right or wrong. If you think your team is good. If you think you're going to run train on people this week. That's